Hey there guys, I'm Chris Bowden and welcome to the Geek Group. We are back once again for an equipment autopsy. And we've got, I don't even know what it is. I think it's a heater. It's the original disc furnace right there. By Pelican, does that say? Who is that? Oh, Pelonis Del Rey. It's the original disc furnace. So we had checked this out. And we'll start with, almost all autopsies begin with cutting off the cord. For this particular cord, we've got a little warning here. To reduce the risk of fire, do not remove this tag. Well, it's one of my autopsies, and personally, I'm kind of hoping for a little fire. Also, we've got a new thing to show you guys in the autopsies. Now, check this out. Here's how this works. There's 4 cameras on this particular shoot. We're going in kind of a new thing with the autopsies. We've got the standard wide shot. This is the camera I'm supposed to talk to. And what one is that? Is that red or blue? Blue. That's blue. Okay, so that's blue. Over here we've got red, so we've got blue and red. Blue and red. And these are, the red is like the zoom in shot. So when I do something like hold this up and say, okay, we're going to show you this, real quick the camera dude like zooms in really, really fast. Okay, and he does that. So that's why they make the big money. Now, we've had the overhead camera for a long time. It's our cooking show shot. And it's one of our oldest cameras from before we had real cameras like the JVCs and the big Sony and all that. And we call it the adventure cam because it's a camera we took, like if you've ever seen the video of the bell tower or inside the big pipe organ, that's the adventure camera. And that's this one, it's located up there. And if I hold something out like this, it zooms in, it's constantly zoomed in pretty tight. It's kind of a pain in the butt because it's autofocus, but it's there. Well, we've added a new one over here. You've seen this in a bunch of episodes, like just sitting here, but Steve Prosser came out, Steve came out, a bunch of guys got on this and made it work good, and now we've got this really cool macro cam in here. I'll zoom all the way out, and you can see the whole, like here's the table and the lights and all that, and we can zoom in really tight, really, really tight. So, and we'll zoom in on fire. Hey, yeah, fire. So this is a new thing, and because we're trying to be artistic. Hiding up there, we have Liz with the really nice Sony camera, and you're doing like artistic B-roll cutaway stuff, as I understand it. Okay, she won't talk because she's a professional, but she's up there watching me, and it's more than a little creepy. So that's the new setup. We're going to experiment with this. We've got some new people. We've got a lot of new people, and you're going to see changes in the sets and the autopsies and all that. So there's a lot of fun stuff going on here. It's kind of cool. So let's take this apart. We've got a nice, easy autopsy with the original disc furnace. Now, you know what really sucks? I always start by cutting off the cord, and I'm going to want to go back and plug this in and make something work and like show it lighting up. So I'm an idiot, and it's just a habit. Just whenever I take things apart, the first thing I always do is take off the cord, and I always end up wanting it. So we're going to go to our most used tool, the number 2 Phillips screwdriver. And if you're going to go and buy like a basic tool kit because you want to take stuff apart at home, very first tool you need is a number 2 Phillips screwdriver. You will use that one tool more than anything else. And if you're taking stuff apart, the first 2 tools you're going to want are a number 2 Phillips screwdriver and a set of diagonal cutters, which you will often hear referred to as dikes, which is short for diagonal cutters, or women in comfortable shoes. It goes either way. So we're taking off the safety grill on the back. See, this is one of those little things you want to save because that's actually kind of useful. This is good for greebling. When you take stuff apart, if you're going to be building other stuff later, keep decorative parts like this. Like, yeah, it's a useful fan grill and all that, but this has uses for greebling, where if you're going to build like a prop or just a cool project, well, if you take any engineering class anywhere, they're going to teach you right off the bat, like day one, form follows function, which is engineers' way of saying you can be lazy and it can be ugly as long as it works really, really good. I think that's a load of crap. I think that it's not good enough for it to just work. You have to make it look cool. Okay, it's got to look the part. And if you're going to build some really awesome science techy thing, greebling is perfectly allowed. And greebling is hanging extra little decorative bits on it that may or may not actually serve a function, but make it look cooler. So like, The term, I could get this wrong, I could totally get this wrong, and I wish Jabroni was in the room because he would absolutely know. I think the term comes from like Star Wars, like when they were doing the original Star Wars, something that era. They would take, like if you ever watch Star Wars, like old school Star Wars, like Empire, okay? And they show spaceships. Well, spaceships have like all kinds of stuff on the outside, little tweedly bits all over the outside of spaceships. Well, this is the 21st century. We've put men on the moon. We've got space shuttles. Well, we had them. And if you look on the outside of like the space shuttle, it's not covered in all kinds of little tiny bits and pieces. It's actually pretty smooth and aerodynamic. So the reason they do that, though, is because for space movies and that's what people expect. And the more little tiny detail you can get on the model, the better. And the cool thing is where they got this. Back in the day, the old model pieces like that you would see on spaceships and that, well, those are models, and those, that wasn't CGI back then. People had to build that by hand. So they would go and get model pieces of like, model trains and model cars and stuff like that, and take them all apart and put them all together in a big box and say, oh, okay, that looks kind of cool. And they just start gluing this on the models. Nowadays, they do that in software, and there is software that exists that just has greebling on it, and you can say, this is where I want to put it, and randomize it this much, and it just covers your surface and stuff. It's not nearly as cool. All right, so we've got the main guts come out all at once, right there. And we've got some extra little bits in here. I'm just going to try and get the whole housing apart nice and quick. I'm just going to take everything out, and then we'll examine the internal stuff. See, you start out on a simple autopsy, we end up talking about greebling and models. You never know where these are going to go. There's no script. Makes the video team nuts. I like it that way. It's just our way of getting to hang out, tinker with stuff, learn about things. It's like Mr. Rogers with fire and death. Mr. Rogers needed a Tesla coil. That's all I'm going to say. Yeah, see, that's crap. We don't need that. Oh, and that comes right off. Look at this. Nice, easy. Now we've got our housing, a little box for putting things in. Don't need that either. Now this is all pretty much snapped together. Very simple control panel. And this is old school. This is probably 80s vintage by the look of it, maybe 90s. It's really simple. Now the switch here, oh, they soldered it. See if we can get that out. Grab a straight blade screwdriver. Now this switch here, I'll just cut it off so I can show you. Here's the thing you're going to want to know, because you'll come across these when you're taking stuff apart. You see that switch right there? And on the other side, it's a double switch. Now this is a good, useful switch. Well, the switch just pops in to a rectangular hole. And you can see them there. I'll clean this up here. Let me cut some of this stuff off, because it's just soldered on, so I'm going to have to cut it off anyway. All right, we'll get rid of all that. Now, if you look on the side of the switch right here, you can see them. See how the wings jut out? Well, you can push these down, like if you push it down with your finger. And that's what holds it in there. So if you want to reuse one of these type of switches where it's a rectangular switch and it just pushes into the hole, there's no screws or anything. So what you have to do is squeeze both sides of this, which can be a major pain in the butt. So here's how we're going to try it. I'm going to stick the screwdriver in and just see if I can roll it out, because sometimes you can do that. Sometimes you can't get them out without cutting off the face. That sucks. But work a tool in there. Ah, there we go. That's progress. You just got to dance around, work one side after the other. And they usually have 4 of them. Sometimes they only have 2 for smaller switches. And if you do it right, you don't end up bleeding. And it's like glued in, or there we go. Okay. All right, so you see, as it comes out, you can see how those stick out just a little bit further than the hole. So you just pop it out like that. Now this one, there's no obvious way that that's attached in there. There's no screw holes or anything. So usually with stuff like this, you pop the knob off. So, oh yeah, it's Gerber Ninja time. So we'll grab the knob. If we can grab the knob, we can't. So long skinny screwdriver. Let's see if we can wedge it under. Pop it off. Well, I got that off. Okay. Simple shaft. It's got a little key on the shaft. Ooh, we can go over here and show the shaft key. Watch this. Zoom in. And now we got to focus it. There, look at that. You can see the key, the flat spot on the end of the shaft. It's called a key. And that goes down into a little bit here. That's a pleasant sound, isn't it? You can see the hole there. See, I have to focus this manually for you to see it. But that's the top of the hole. And you can go all the way down inside, and you can see the keyed slot down in there. See that? So that's the top of the hole, and that's the keyed slot. And it just grabs a little wiper. It's a potentiometer down inside. But to take this out, see the nut? I'm not going to do it, but see the nut right there? You'd have to undo that nut to take the potentiometer out. So you'd have to reach down in there like this and turn it. If you're ever working on really old car stereos, the kind of car stereos where they just have a knob on each end, like old, like 70s and earlier, the knobs on each end have 2 nuts, and that's how the stereo mounts. So it's pretty much the only place where you're going to come across that a lot. So we don't need this either. Now here we've got the control board and the danger sensor. Because remember, this is a heater, so the idea here is for this to get hot enough to warm up your room without setting things on fire. And the people that make these are kind of serious about not setting your stuff on fire. It doesn't mean they don't do it from time to time. Now, look here. We'll have a guy zoom in to see this. This is the side of the fan, like it blows through here. And you can see this little thing sticking up right here, there's like a wire. That is a temperature sensor. That's a thermometer. So that tells the fan when the room has achieved the right temperature. This is probably on the input side. So when the air in the room is warm enough, it tells the thing to turn itself off. Oh, you're in there with goop. Screw it. We're going to carve it right out. Die! Now this is also a temperature sensor, but for a totally different purpose. This is the safety sensor. Okay, I'm just gonna, I can just cut that zip tie. Okay, so I'm cutting the zip tie for the little thing here. We can pull that right out. Okay. All right, now let's see what we got. This is the danger temperature sensor, and you can see, remember a few videos back we talked about series circuits versus parallel circuits? Well, this is a series circuit. You can see the power cord right here that comes in, and you can come in and get a tight shot on that. And this goes out to our power cord. Well, on our power cord, we've got hot and neutral, and if you follow these 2 wires, here, we'll split them apart. The hot, the first place it goes, is right to this, and this is basically a fuse. When this gets hot, a part inside melts or a little thing trips, and it opens a circuit. So this is sensing for over temperature, and it doesn't say the temperature on it. Frequently they do. It just says TO3, which I'm guessing is a package style, like that particular shape. But when this gets to a certain temperature, it opens a circuit and it closes out. And we should show that in a video. In fact, we might even be able to show that in this video. If somebody can go and get me a multimeter and a blowtorch, we could heat this up and do that. That could be fun. We'll probably come back in another video and show that. Here we've got the heater itself, which is what I'm really curious about, and a big muffin fan on the back. Really common. These, wicked useful. You can do all kinds of fun stuff with them. In fact, I'll tell you a really cool one here in a second. But first, let's dig into this board. I think we can just unplug stuff off of here and get rid of the excess wires. The plugs are old and corroded. That's probably why it died. Let's give it a haircut here, shall we? Okay, we'll cut that off. Cut that off. What do we got? Okay. Now this is a very simple little circuit board. We'll take a look at it over here. Now we can see a lot of the basic componentry. Really the only brain it's got is that chip, the LM324N chip. And we can see, I'll point out some parts here just so you guys can get an idea of what certain things look like. This little thing down here is a diode, right there. These are all resistors, and the color bands denote value. If you want some really good reading, get on Wikipedia and look up the color band values for resistors. That's a good thing to memorize. Over here we have another diode, some more resistors. This is an electrolytic capacitor, right here. This fun little thing, Q1, that's a transistor. And the 3 leads out the bottom will be the emitter, base, and collector. Over here, we've got a big resistor. Now it says 5W3 9KJ. I could be wrong, but I'm going to guess that that's a 5-watt resistor rated for 9,000 ohms. Here's another type of diode down here. That's also a diode. Another electrolytic capacitor. That's just a straight jumper wire. Sometimes you'll see these on circuit boards. We've got plug locations and stuff like that. You'll see that this big thing with stripes on it and that little thing with stripes on it are both resistors. This is just a higher wattage resistor. The higher the wattage, the bigger the resistor is because they have to get rid of all that heat. A resistor is a device that converts electrical energy into thermal energy. Now a diode takes electricity and it'll allow it to go one way, but not the other. It's like a one-way valve for electricity. Whereas a capacitor is like a little tiny battery that you can charge and discharge very, very fast. They hold a very specific amount of electricity. And those are the 3 main things we've got on here. We've got transistors, and a transistor is like an electrically controlled switch. And you can learn more about those by going to this link right here. And those few components are some real fundamental basics for electronics. You want to know about resistors, diodes, capacitors, and transistors. Those are your stepping stones right there, your first starting point. So that's a look at our little circuit board. Now this is the component side, and on the back we have the solder side, and you can see the little traces, and we'll zoom out a little bit so you guys can see them, but it looks kind of like a map. And these traces are where the electricity goes. These are flat wires made out of different chemicals. In this board they're probably made out of copper. And they're etched in there with a photographic process. So that's a look at the board. We don't need that anymore. All right, now we've got the fan and the heater. And these are both pretty simple. We're down to just 4 wires. And we've got, well, 5, but that's just an extra wire that was grounded onto there. So we've got our 2 wires here that go to the heater and our 2 wires here that go to the fan. So let's dig in. We go from this way. There's springs on the screws. There's like a tensioning spring here, which is kind of cool. I'm going to keep those. That's useful stuff. All right, so we've got the screws out. And there's the last one. All right, so we've got all the screws out. Now we've got our intake grill right here. Actually, that's probably the exhaust grill. So let's dig in. Oh, wow, there really isn't much here. Okay, here we've got a big fan. And it's just a standard 120 volt fan, nothing to it. It's actually a really nice one. The really, really nice ones have metal blades. But this one's good. Now, I got to tell you about this because this is big fun. Years ago, my first truck, I had a Chevy S10, and I had a whole bunch of old muffin fans with metal cases and plastic blades, and they were all just extra junk muffin fans we had laying around. for reasons I will never understand. I got bored one day and used zip ties to mount like 50 of them, mostly like 120 millimeter fans, to the inside the front grille of my pickup truck. So outside the radiator, but inside the front grille, just covered the whole thing with muffin fans. Now, because I'm a very serious nerd, when they used to have pre-mixed tanks for pop. Like now, like if you go into a store or something, like the big fountain drinks, they come in a bag, in a box. Well, they used to come in big tanks, like a 5-gallon tank, and they're about that big around, about that high, and they're these big, heavy aluminum tanks. I put 2 of these on either side, right on the bed rail of the truck, right behind the cab. For no particular reason, it was just, I was bored, and I just like bolting stuff to my truck. So with the 2 big round tanks on the side of the bed of the truck and all the fans in the front, at about 45 miles an hour, all the fans would start winding up. Now, I didn't have the fans wired to anything. They were just sitting there, but you couldn't see them. So at about 45 miles an hour, all the fans would start pinwheeling up and they'd spool up to speed. And you're cruising down a highway and you just hear whee! Going down the road. And you get off on an off-ramp, you pull up at the light and you're next to the dude and your truck's just sitting there going and people would look at you and they'd see these big things on the back and they look like warp nacelles or something. And it was just fun. So good use for old muffin fans. You can put them in front of your grill of your car because you just cruise down the road. It's fun and it's loud. It's really, really loud. So you got to use a lot of fans though. So try it out with like 4 or 5 and just add fans to taste. So how do we get into the next level of this? Oh, okay. Maybe. Maybe not. That'll do it. That's why I make the big money. All right, so we don't need that. Now here we've got, this is the hot lead, which comes in and touches these right here. It just touches the front. Wow, that's really it, isn't it? That's cool. This is it. These are the heating elements, so these little ceramic elements. Because out the other side, we've got the other thing, and that's the ground. So all there is to it is these elements, and they've got 2 little electrical contact patches. There's one there, and there's one there. So these sit in like that. If you can put it in the hole. It came out of the hole to go back in there. All right, put that in there. See, and that's all there is to it. All that work just to get down to this little thing. And then there's this connector, which just sits right there. And then that thing that I put on there squeezes them together. So this makes heat. So these, remember we talked about resistors and how they convert electrical energy into thermal energy? These do the same thing. This is a resistor. So when you put electricity across it, it generates heat. So we're going to come back, because that's the autopsy. We've taken it apart. But when we come back, we're going to take a look at this, and I'm going to see if I can apply power to it and actually get it to warm up a bit. I got to measure the resistance and all that. But we're going to talk about this and talk about resistance, and I think this would be a really good thing to get Mr. Kidwell in on. So we're going to be back in another video where we're going to sit down with Mr. Kidwell, and we're going to talk about Ohm's law, and we're going to talk about all kinds of cool stuff with resistors, and we'll go through the color codes, and that's the thing. So look for a video coming up on the basics of resistors, and we're going to play with this, and we're actually going to make these heat up. I wonder if they glow. I don't know. I don't think they get hot enough because this is just plastic. Well, no, that's metal. I'm very curious. So look for an upcoming video on this. It's going to be fun. But that's it for the autopsy. That is how the original disk heater works, which is a pretty lame name, just so you guys know. But yeah, this is, when you see those ceramic disk heaters, now you know how they work. And it's actually kind of cool. I got to see if I can put it back together again all on my own without like an adult. Yeah, that fits there. Okay. All right, so you guys have fun. I'm Chris Bowden with the Geek Group. And if you're not familiar with the Geek Group, you got to check us out. Go to thegeekgroup.org. And if you're not a member yet, You should be, okay? Membership is free and available to anybody around the world with a sincere and passionate desire to learn and take things apart and see how the world works. So come on down and check us out, thegeekgroup.org. If you're in Southwest Michigan, our headquarters is at 902 Leonard Northwest, Grand Rapids, Michigan, and everything you see here and a whole bunch of other stuff from all the videos is here for you guys to come down and play with and check out and learn about giant robots and lasers and high voltage and physics and thermodynamics and chemistry and just stuff. Come check it out. Come be a part of the Geek Group. In the meantime, rate, comment, subscribe, and call your mom. I'm Chris Bowden. We'll see you next time.
This video was made possible by a grant from the Future Girl Foundation.
This video was made possible by thousands of private donations from members and viewers like you. Please visit thegeekgroup.org for more information on how you can donate and become a part of our dreams of Avalon.